Okay, it's nearly 5 past, so we'll make a start. So welcome everybody. This is the professional registration question and answer session for the October applications. I'm Emma Wright. I'm AFA's Director of Professional Development, and I'm joined by Andrew Barraclough. Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So, Andrew Barraclough, Director of Skills Development at AFA, and day job is working in an analysis team at Nottingham University Hospitals. Great to see you all.
Super. So, as I said, this is intended to be a question and answer session. So, for any questions you may have around the professional registration process or anything, if you're currently progressing an application that you want a bit more sort of guidance and advice on. So, before I open it out to questions, has everybody already been to sort of an overview session for professional registration, or just to give you a quick run through? Is that a yes that you like? Yes, excellent. That's great. Thank you. So, Andrew, do you have the slide deck at your fingertips?
I do. So,
we'll give a quick walkthrough and then we can pick up any specifics.
So, hopefully that's come through for you.
Yep.
Bro. So yeah, I just give you a quick run through of the kind of thing that we do at the introduction workshop, but hopefully bring you up to speed. And if you haven't seen this before, hopefully it'll be useful. So talking to you about professional registration through AFA, Association of Professional Healthcare Analysts. And we started with the analyst title, but we very much want to be for data and analytical professionals. So covering, in the language of the National Competency Framework that you may have seen, data analysts, scientists, engineers. We'd love to have you all as part of what we do. We sit under the auspices of FedIP, the Federation for Informatics Professionals. So that's an umbrella organization of various different bodies that cover off different informatics, information, IT professionals. So British Computer Society is in there, CILIP is in there. So various different bodies. We cover the data and analytical professionals. So FedIP, not a membership body, that's where we come in, but it is a registration body. And if you go through the AFA professional registration process, you get to be on the FedIP public register. So you can go to their website and see your name on there, which is pretty good. And FedIP sets the generic registration standards that then we turn into how they might apply in the data and analytics field. So
Andrew, I know you've been having Teams problems today. If you're moving through the slides, we can't see them.
I am.
We can see the title slide, but that's.
You're right. So yes, I've moved on, but it hasn't, has it?
I've had a whole week of technical Teams issues. So.
Indeed. So let me.
Sure, we've all had those.
Yeah, so that's not working, is it? So I will come out, just try and give it another chance. So there I am, quite happily talking away, aren't I? So oh, is that better? That's excellent. So where I had got to, I know it isn't, is it? Because it's, I know what. So this might be working, mightn't it? Yeah. Okay. So I'll try it in this form. So I was talking about being part of FedIP, that is the umbrella organization, but not the membership body. That's where we come in as AFA. You can get to be on the public register, though, if you go through the registration process. So you'll be on the FedIP website. You'll be able to see your name there. Where we come in then as AFA is we are the membership organization for analysts and also now, data professionals as well. So I said data analysts, scientists, engineers. We'd love to have you all with us. So we are licensed by FedIP to do that registration process, to create that registration route. So we take the generic FedIP standards and then just tailor them into what works better for us as a data and analyst professionals. And we oversee this from an AFA point of view through the Professional Development Committee chaired by Emma. And then I'm on that along with a number of colleagues to oversee this as a process. So what we do as AFA is wider than this, but at the heart of what we do is create this route to professional registration. So if we look at, well, why you might want to do this. So we think that professional registration is great because it demonstrates your skills, your competencies, your commitment, wherever you are in your career. You may be at the start of that, partway through, or a very senior place. Professional registration adds to what you're doing in your career. It's also an independent validation of your knowledge, skills, and abilities. So that can be a useful recognition. It's a validation of the skills that you have based on what you're doing and the evidence that you provide. So you don't get this just because you've done certain qualifications. We want to know, what are you doing practically? How have you applied those things? It's great if you've got relevant skills that you've gained through various academic studies. That can be fantastic. That can be part of how you demonstrate things, but we want to see that practical application as well. So it is an independent indication of competence and credibility to add to what you do in your day job. So what do you in fact need to do? Well, you need to think about your skills and experience before you apply, because we offer this at various different levels. So we've got 5 levels now that you can come in on. So we've got the associate practitioner, which is the kind of beginning level. So maybe if you are at the start of your career or you haven't been in healthcare for too long a period, the associate practitioner can be a great way to start. It shows you have got a commitment. It shows you're working in this field. It shows that you are undertaking continuing professional development. But then we get on to the 4 levels we've got, from practitioner, senior practitioner, advanced practitioner, through to leading practitioner. And those are where we'll focus on as the key levels of the process and where they go into a more in-depth application process. Please make sure you just use the forms that we've got, and we've just updated those and put some new ones on there through mapping to the National Competency Framework. So that should hopefully be useful for you as well. So if you go to the AFA site, we've got a page on there that will talk about professional registration. It'll talk about how to do it, the fact that we've got a quarterly registration cycle at the moment. And there's a button there that will take you on to frequent questions, some reflective practice examples, further guidance, and on also to where you can go to get to the application forms, which will take you onto the FedIP hub. So which level? Practitioner, senior, advanced, leading. We don't map these onto specific bands because we know that in the NHS and in other organizations, there could be a wide range of variation about which kind of bands you may have particular jobs at. So we try and give this sort of description which matches what the FedIP use across the different professional bodies. So maybe if you're just starting out in a more junior role where you are doing tasks that are given to you, there's limited autonomy, you're using just tools and methods that may be what others direct you towards, through to the leading practitioner if you are working in leading an organizational analytical function, or maybe you're taking on national roles as well. So hopefully there's some pointers there. Can also be useful to look at the National Competency Framework. That will also, because they use the same kind of 5 levels that we've got, so you might be looking at that. And if you're scoring yourself through the National Competency Framework at a certain level, there's probably a good chance it's going to map back onto these levels that we have as well. So how do you make this journey? Choose your registration level. And because we ask for minimum of 3 reflective practice pieces. That's a good place to start thinking about what are some good, big pieces of work that you've done that you can start capturing the evidence that's going to help you meet a number of different standards. So that's a good place to think about those big pieces of work and start collecting the evidence to go with those. So when you do get into actually doing the application, you've collected a lot of things along the way. Complete your reflective practice and commentary, compile your evidence, and submit. So if we start with the reflective practice, so we asked for a minimum of 3 of those, and this is a good chance to tell the story of some analytical or data work that you've done. So we use this kind of STAR format, which isn't something we came up with. This is a good general way of thinking about reflective practice. So what was the situation you were in? What were the broad tasks that you needed to undertake? The specific actions that you did then? And what did you get from that? So what was the results of that work? What were they? Great if you can tell the story of the impacts of something, but the results from your point of view of doing that work. And we then ask you to go on to describe some other elements of that reflective practice. So what went well for you? What went less well? What did you learn? What would you do differently? And when you think of these reflective practice pieces, it doesn't have to be things that went fantastic, because there could be great learning in you did something, you tried it, and you learn from that there are different ways to do things next time. That's absolutely fine. There doesn't have to be fantastically successful projects. These are things where you can tell this whole story, that you can then take things that say, well, yeah, some of this went well, but there's a lot of other things that I would learn. That's fantastic for telling the story in this professional application. In terms of the form, then, we just asked for some details around that you might expect to find on a CV of what's the kind of role that you're undertaking, so we can just check that you are applying for the right professional body, that maybe there isn't another one that would be better suited. Have you done any papers or presentations, awards, etc.? Those can be fantastic, and they may then be things that you refer to in the rest of your application. Have you got relevant professional qualifications that can show us what you've done, and then we can then look for the practical application of those and what you're telling us. Also then just a brief relevant career history, because again, we want to know that you are working in this kind of relevant field, rather than some other, maybe related field, but that may be better suited to British Computer Society, for example. So just tell us a story of the roles that you've had, the relevant roles. We then look for this matrix, which maybe looks quite daunting, but hopefully is a good checklist of the kind of things that you need to demonstrate, and just to make sure that you've completed all of these boxes throughout the whole application form. So we've got the series of standards, which will just be a little bit different depending on the level that you're coming into. Show us the evidence that you've got, just give that a number code, and then we can look for that in the evidence pack, and then just tick which of the reflective practice pieces relates to that standard, that substandard. And it's not that we'd expect every reflective practice piece will link back to every standard. That's not necessarily going to be the case. Of course, it's going to depend on the story that you're telling, but hopefully you're going to have 2 or 3 reflective practice pieces which you can map across, because this is a great way of just making sure that you cover everything in kind of the most efficient way. So in terms of the application form, then, for each of the standards, we've got those substandards. Give us a little bit of commentary. If you have flagged something in the reflective practice pieces, that's great, but just give us a couple of lines on those couple of examples that just flag the particular part of that reflective practice piece that's relevant. Tell us RP1, 2, 3, etc., and just flag what that evidence is that's relevant to that standard, so we can then just do that read across. And hopefully you've got a couple of pieces of evidence of different kinds that will give you that demonstration and feed across. We've now moved to doing it all through the FedIP hub. So hopefully this has all been a smoother process that we've brought in. So register for that. That will take you into how you can get all of the relevant forms. It will also be then the way that you can upload things as well. So it makes it clear to you that you've sent this, rather than doing lots of things by emails, which can get lost. So this is hopefully a much smoother, more efficient process. Then we can go into the back end and we'll get notifications when you've hopefully applied. So you make the submissions, you attach all of the form that you're sending in, the reflective practice, the evidence, etc. If the things that you need to tell us, maybe there's some evidence that you're not able to submit because it's got details on that you don't want to share, that's fine, flag that there, and then we can talk about different ways that you might be able to demonstrate that to us. Key dates. Obviously, we're in a registration window at the moment, so hopefully we can answer any of your questions. We then close that because we do this on a quarterly basis, and then we will share those applications out amongst the assessors that we have. We'll assess those, come back through to the PDC for sign off. If there's any kind of questions along the way, because we want to make this a robust process, but we also want to make sure that you get through. So it is all about making sure that if we've got questions, we will come back to you if there's anything that we need just more clarity on. This isn't kind of you submit it and then we either say yes or no, and that's the only thing you hear about us. We want to make this a success for you. So hopefully that was useful as a quick run through, and apologies for the technical difficulties at the start there, but hopefully that brought you up to speed and that was useful. And let's see what questions we've got.
Super, thanks, Andrew. So I've just drawn out, as Andrew mentioned, that we have got some new application forms on the hub. If you have already started your application on one of the previous application forms, that's absolutely fine. We'll still accept those through. So don't panic that you've got halfway through an application process and you've got to start again. So we'll be slowly sort of phasing them out, but certainly for the next sort of 6 months, we'll still be accepting the older forms. So let's go into some questions, Rebecca.
Hi, sorry, just a really quick question actually about re-registration. Is that just the 2 reflective practices and 1 peer to sign it off? Which is what it looks like. Is that definitely right? I
believe so, if that's what it says on the form. Yeah.
That's what it is on the form. Perfect.
Yeah, no, it is. Okay. So if you're re-registering at the same level, then yeah, it is that sort of couple of pieces of reflective practice, evidence of your CPD, and your sign off. If you're looking to register at a higher level or a different level, then it's a different application process. So it's as if you're doing a new application.
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm going to have to jump off because I've got another meeting, so I'll get in there. Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining.
Right.
Nora.
Hi there. Yeah, so it's regarding the forms, both the matrix of evidence. I couldn't find it in the AFA website. And also there's a Word document with the levels and the different principles. And I think I emailed you in the past.
Did, yes.
Yeah, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And the other thing that I find a bit confusing, and I was looking for some guidance, is in the FEDIP, when you click to apply, well, in my head, I thought you would click that once you were ready to submit things, but now I understand that you click that to start the process. But anyway, it asks you to select a level, but basically I don't really know which level I'm aiming for because the AFA document isn't complete with the guiding questions for all levels. So is it something that I could change? If I click level X there and then I decide, oh, actually I could do X or Y or whatever, change the level further on.
So once you're registered with the FedIP hub, although it does ask you which level at the start, when you're registered, all of the different application forms will be available to you. So the application forms are in the hub and not on the AFA website. So what's on the AFA website is generally just some of our guidance documents. So that all levels piece of guidance documents that you're looking at, we're in the process of updating that at the moment. But if you register through to the hub, you'll be able to see all of the different application forms in there, and then you'll see what the different levels are and what's required from those.
And you can change it later on. That's
yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Jonathan?
Thank you, Emma. I was just going to ask a couple of questions. One was around formal qualifications. I think, like many analysts, we don't have formal qualifications. I don't know how relevant this is to the application. That's really kind of my concern. I don't know if you look on that heavily when we apply to become accredited. And my other question would be, what happens if you pick the wrong level and then you apply? Does it just get rejected, or do you come back with a recommendation about another level perhaps? I was wondering if what happens there.
So regarding formal qualifications, the short answer is no, we don't give weight to formal qualifications. What we're looking for is your ability to put your skills into practice, which is what professional registration is all about. So you may have academic qualifications, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can practice those skills.
True. In that respect, no. So in terms of if you apply at the wrong level, so what I would say is that when you complete your application form, you have to be able to meet the standards, all of the standards within that level. So if you're applying for advanced practitioner, but you only meet 75% of the standards, then we wouldn't pass that through as advanced practitioner, and we'd advise you to apply at senior level if that was more appropriate. We do have, or we have had instances where we've received applications and we've either suggested that people look at applying at a lower level, and we've also had in the opposite direction where people have applied and we've gone, actually, we think you probably want one level higher. So we'd work with you around that. So I think we had an application, I think it was the window before last, Andrew, wasn't there, whether we had a resubmission at a higher level, and we took that as part of the original application window. So generally it's a sort of 3-month cycle. So applicants will have a month in which to complete their application, and then assessors have that sort of 2-month period to both assess the application but also work with the applicant if needed, either to get more evidence or to redirect to a more appropriate level. Okay, great. I was just going to ask one more question then on top of that. So around my role, so I'm very much at a level now where I'm dealing with people rather than actual analytics. And I guess this for me creates a dilemma because it's trying to justify my work, but my work is like living vicariously through other people. So so they're doing the work that I asked them to do. So I guess for me is, how do I justify that in my work? Or in the application, how do I justify this? Because I find that this is the reason I've been AFRA member for years, and I've just been trying to justify how I can say I'm an analyst or I'm part of that when I'm not actually doing that work anymore. That's kind of my
no, I understand. So I'm registered as a leading practitioner and haven't done analytics for years. So all of my evidence is around either strategies or things I've implemented within teams, sort of programs of work that I've coordinated and led on, but not necessarily undertaken the analytics. But I've had the capability to be able to assure that analytics and also, to guide on appropriate methodologies and to be able to explain maybe the outputs of other people's work to a lay audience. We'll say, Andrew, I don't know whether you want to add anything into that.
And when we first drew this up, and we were very conscious of that, weren't we? Because we were thinking, because I came in as an advanced because of where I was leading teams, etc. Same kind of thing. And because I come diagonally into this anyway, so I couldn't even go back and say, oh yeah, back in the day I was doing coding or something. I hadn't done that. And anyway, you wouldn't be doing it now necessarily. So it's not that you have to prove that you could do, the practitioner, CD, advanced anyway.
Okay.
If you are, working as somebody who is determining, the kind of work that's done, and you're revising on methodologies that others carry out, it is analytical leadership, isn't it? So you've got to be working in a leading analytical teams or advising on analytical work. This is AFRA, but it doesn't mean that you're carrying out all of those things. As you say, you are working through others. You're directing the work, quality assuring the work, doing the project management. You can be determining which methodologies, the choice of that, the problem structuring. So there's a variety of things that you do as analytical leadership, isn't there? On the way to, where Emma's at, where it's waving wands and magic thing happened, isn't it, as an analytical leader?
If only.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem. Stuart?
I think just building on what Jonathan said there and probably touching what Andrew did. So I don't have a background in analytics at all. I'm actually a finance, so I'm a qualified accountant.
Yeah,
But
that's
there is
how
a
I
bit-
came in as well.
Yeah. So for me, there's a big part in this that having taken some advice from information colleagues, I'm really keen on, and I've been, I don't know if you want to call me a data evangelist or whatever, but the importance of data and data standards and data structures and how that works within the department. And although I've been an AFA member for a while, I really want to get FedIP accreditation, simply because we can then, it's a point of contact within the finance department and an acknowledgement that we've got a commitment to improving the way that we how we move our data forward. I think as finance modernise with all the technology, there's a key role in this, and it isn't actually represented of the importance of data and data structures, etc. How that links back to the professional qualifications that we have within finance. So I'm really struggling about, because I have none of the analytical background. If you ask a finance colleague about analytics, it's yeah, I can do a pivot table. It's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So it's about how I'm struggling to try and get that reflective practice. I think I've got lots of it over a period of time, but there is a timescale as well, isn't there? Is there a 3-year cutoff of stuff that you've done for your application?
So yeah, we tend to not really want to look back sort of further
Yeah.
than 3 years unless there's really good evidence of why we might do that. So you may have, had time off or taken a career break or something in that time, but generally it is in that sort of 3-year period.
Okay. Yeah, because I just think it's really important for us as a profession, but also the department that I run in.
Yeah.
So I've now got a new role, which is around. So I'm now finance lead for data strategy and management. I've got a role in patient level information and
Right.
costing. All of those are data driven.
Yeah.
It's about how do we take those forward. But I just think that AFA and FedIP are a really important element of that for our commitment.
Absolutely.
And
Any other
do we just want to pick up that point about so we have a quarterly application window, don't we, for the 4 levels from practitioner up, and so it does run, the kind of dates that are put there, and we open it for a month so that we can run it in a process. But the associate practitioner, then, that is any time in the year, isn't it? Because it's a lighter process for the applicant and for us. So we do run that at any time in the year. For the 4 levels from practitioner up, that is the quarterly window. And I think the question as well about, so the associate practitioner is expressing an interest, isn't it? So it could be for people who are new to this and you want to show that interest, you want to show that commitment. But equally, if you haven't been in this, you've been an experienced analyst, but you've not necessarily been in healthcare for that long, or you just want to do something whilst you think about you're making the further application and thinking about that, then associate practitioner still is a way in, isn't it? So it could be for you're new to this, or it could be for the more experienced. It's a way of expressing your interest that then you want to follow up in due course with the application at one of the other levels that's a more involved process.
Louise?
Hi. So yeah, I've started doing the application. I just wanted to check about reflective practice and evidence. So as I understand it, you need a piece of evidence for all of the competencies. What about reflective practice? Because I've got some areas that aren't necessarily covered in that.
So reflective practice may not necessarily cover all of the standards. And if that's the case, then the application form itself is the place where you can then reference those standards and how you meet those standards. So we do receive applications where not every standards is referenced within the reflective practice. We do need evidence across all of the standards, but you can use the same piece of evidence for multiple standards. So if you've got a piece of project work that meets several standards, then you can just reference that one piece of evidence across many standards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Nora?
And in this evidence, is it possible to send you censored documents so that patient data, so it basically has a text, or like, but the plot and the tables are just like crossed out or like not there?
Yeah.
deleted?
So we absolutely don't want to receive any sensitive information, anything that's patient
Yeah.
identifiable. So you can either redact that when you send the evidence in, or you can make a note that your evidence is sensitive and you can have a call with your assessor to talk through the work that you've done. So we've done that on a number of occasions where an applicant will have a Teams meeting with the assessor and kind of show some work on screen rather than send sensitive evidence in.
Okay, but if not the text, it's okay. Like the text
Yeah,
without
yeah.
tables is a good way. Okay.
Yeah, so you can redact anything, yeah. Any other questions? What a really good set of questions today. Written a few down to add to our frequently asked questions list.
We always had to find some new ones, don't we? It's good.
Definitely.
So is anyone in the middle of doing an application at the moment? Hopefully. Are you all planning for a future one? Is anybody doing one at the minute?
Yeah, I'm doing mine. I was hoping to get it in for July, but summer holidays kind of got in the way, so I'm trying to get it in for this.
Brilliant. Yeah, and it's good to, because it's a big job, isn't it? But it's good to then make that commitment, get out of the way, or else it'll just keep being there, won't it? And so it's brilliant. Looking forward to seeing that then. Fantastic. Okay, maybe is anyone planning for the next window then? You're using this for some questions, but going for the next window, is that more likely?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I was planning for this one, but I think I'm aiming for January. It works, taking over.
Happens.
You've got a break, haven't you, to fill in, reflective practice. What else are you going to do?
Yeah.
So peer and sponsor, that's normally, so normally we see line managers signing those off, and maybe somebody that you work alongside, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a line manager. So we have a number of analysts whose line manager isn't necessarily working within analytics, so they either choose sort of other generally more senior people within the analytics teams, or other people that they've worked alongside in previous roles. I've recently signed off an application for a previous member of my team, because obviously I've got more knowledge of their work than their current line manager, because they're relatively new. So we are quite flexible about who's in there, but that individual is signing off to say that you're a fit and proper analyst, and there's no reason why you shouldn't be on a professional register. So make sure you keep them sweet. So. Nora?
Sorry, it's not clear to me, this sign off or I thought that was in case you didn't have evidence or something, someone can vouch for it, but is it required in all cases, or like it's not clear to me the role of this sign in?
So you need a peer or a sponsor to sign off your application form regardless. If your sponsor is already professionally registered, then they can sign off your evidence. So they can sign off to say that the evidence that you've provided alongside your application form is your evidence, and it reflects the work that you do. And that just means that the assessor at the other end of the process then doesn't necessarily have to go through and verify all of your evidence. So if you haven't got another professionally registered analyst to be able to sign off your evidence, then you'll submit all of your evidence through the FedIP hub, and an assessor will look at that alongside your reflective practice and application.
Okay, but you still need someone, even if it's not professionally registered, to sign off your application?
Yes.
That hadn't registered with me. Okay. And that can be your line manager?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Even though they're not a member of AFA, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Trying to think if there's anything else that we need to cover. Andrew, I think we had a really good set of questions. Jonathan?
Apologies, I do have one final question actually. I was just thinking about getting it proofread before I actually submitted it to see if it was any good. I don't know if you guys have sessions to review, maybe just a few sections of it to sense check it. I don't know if you guys do that at all.
We've had applications where people have sent stuff in and said, you know, am I on the right lines? And we come back and go, yes, or no, you need to focus more here. So you can send that in via the AFA email address.
Oh yeah,
that's okay. info@afaanalysts.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else before we draw to a close?
We got a comment as well. I haven't read it. It sounds like the process is similar to a different application in BCS, which it hopefully isn't too surprising because we're all following FedIP, aren't we? So you'd expect a degree of similarity because that's the standardization across the professional bodies, isn't it? And that's what you link in with Emma to make sure that we're following that and trying to do things in a common way where appropriate. I mean, the different bodies have been at this for different lengths of time, haven't they? So there are some differences, but equally you're trying to ensure there is standardization as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it should be a very similar process for similar levels right across all the different organisations that sit under that FedIP umbrella that we spoke at the start. Okay. Well, if there aren't any more questions, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And said, if you think of any other questions or you do want us just to have a quick look over your application just to check that it's on the right lines, then please do feel free to send it through to that AFA email address. And we look forward to receiving all your applications soon, and best of luck.
We do, yeah. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.